Can the Cowboys defense carry them throughout the playoffs? Did you believe that they were at that level or good enough? I did not.
I was starting to come around to it, but it's always skeptical when you watch a defense who has been as good as they've been on third down. You know, coming into this week, they were number one in the NFL on third down conversion against. They were tied for the lead in, the NFL with takeaways with the Indianapolis Colts, now are sole, first place, in that category. It's hard to win and keep up that kind of pace. But then I had to look at it and say, well, maybe this is just that 1 year anomaly where you think about, the Saints, when they won their Super Bowl, was a turnover takeaway machine. The Kansas City Chiefs a couple of years ago, they were a turnover and takeaway machine, made big plays on defense. Maybe this is just that 1 year anomaly where the Cowboys, for some reason, are able to take away the football away at the kind of rate that allows them to continue to win this way. It's hard to depend on that, but at the way that they're playing right now, who says that they can't do it based on what they've done so far?
So I always love mechanical breakdowns. Like when John Kitna was here, he was given a lot of credit for working with Dak mechanically. And we were all trying to figure out with the calf, what was going on with weight distribution, what was going on with launch angle and throwing the football and driving it and this and that, the technical things. And Chris Collinsworth tried to get into that last night in dissecting some Dak tape. I kind of left it confused where I was like, okay, what's he talking about? I know he's talking about his back leg. I asked some of the Tolos for a recap, and they said he's not raising his back leg on throws, standing tall in the pocket. He worked on keeping his back foot down more in the pocket to be a little bit more accurate, but post-calf injury, he has reverted a little bit. Seems like he was doing better with it last night, been working on keeping his back foot down and more upright in the pocket. This is some of the recaps that the Tolos gave me because I was too dumb to get the mechanics of it, right there live in the game. Dak was asked afterwards if Collinsworth was onto something in terms of his lower half in helping him throw.
I've just continued to work. I've told you guys that I wouldn't say that I was in a slump. I wouldn't say that. Now, I would also agree I wasn't playing my best ball. But at the same time, I've just continued to work and continue to work at the things that I know, trust the guys around me, trust the receivers, and I just think that's the process of that.
He was definitely making throws yesterday we have not been seeing.
Exactly.
He was throwing some dimes.
And that, to me, was one of my observations over the last few weeks about the differences that we saw pre-calf, injury versus post-calf injury, was that some of the throws on the run, some of the jump throws, he had one to CeeDee Lamb, some of the things that he was able to do in extending and climbing the pocket, trusting the leg to move and be able to make plays with his legs. You hadn't really seen that over the last 6-7 weeks. And for him to continue to work through that mental hurdle of trusting the calf, trusting the ankle, and work through those things, I think is still a work in progress. But I think last night was a big step toward reassuring himself that the calf and the leg is still good and that he can make the kinds of plays that have made him, a quarterback that continues to grow and get better year in and year out.
Yeah, he looked like the MVP candidate last night that we saw early on in the season. Just big-time plays. That's what it was, and they were going down the field. I was so happy that I took off last week versus this week because I did not want to talk about that Giants game. That was an awful, boring, horrific game. And again, the offense struggling. And Dak yesterday threw for 300 yards for the first time since Thanksgiving. That's a lot of games, in the NFL with the amount of weapons they have. He hadn't thrown for 300 yards since November 25th. He hadn't thrown 3 touchdowns since the Patriot game, October 17th, and he hadn't run it for this many yards since October 3rd against Carolina. And I just love that he was willing to make the defense pay for over pursuit, or he was not just going to decide to take the sack, throw it away. He was going to move with his legs up in the pocket and get a little bit on the ground. It just creates an extra dimension. 4 carries for 21 yards, and his longest was 13, and he didn't look like Jalen Smith dragging
the leg along with
dead
him.
leg like he did a couple of weeks ago. And I think that was against the football team where it was like, whoa, he's dragging that thing.
And I think that's what we've been looking for from Dak Prescott. Be judicious with your opportunities to run. Take the opportunities when they present it to you, and then be able to get down and then live for another down. And again, his ability to use his legs creates another threat that will keep defenses honest, that can really open up things like the play action and other things that this offense will need to be able to keep teams off balance, especially when you're able to dictate matchups the way the Cowboys were able to do against the Washington football team last night.
He was just more decisive in everything, right? Like when you go back and watch him against Tampa Bay and just early on, it was drop back, pop, 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 bam, ball out. Pop, 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 bam, ball out. And he was decisive in running it yesterday as well. And he was asked about the increased use of the legs after the game.
I think it just the opportunity came. Saw some lanes, felt the pocket a couple of times that allowed me to get out. And then as well as, I just feel good. Body feels good. Just knowing that, felt fast. So obviously back home, back in the turf, and felt good.
Autoflex Leasing fan text from the 903. Last night was the perfect example of why we want home field in the playoffs, which is an interesting comment because you mentioned a little bit earlier about, the road and home splits when it comes to their ability to be effective in the red zone.
Yeah.
This team coming into last night's game was averaging nearly 36 points per game at home this year. And you saw last night how comfortable they were inside of AT&T Stadium and what they were able to do against Washington, which is why I'm sure that fan texter is like, hey, we want to be able to get that number one seed to play at home during the playoffs.
Well, the only other point that was brought up on that was, do you want Aaron Rodgers playing in the snow or in a dome? So you got to trade off, and this is down the road, but the Packers are the one seed. So you get the Packers in Arlington, but Rodgers in perfect conditions versus going to Lambeau and Rodgers dealing with some of the elements. I think I'm still taking it in Arlington.
Yeah, because he's played in those conditions in Green Bay throughout his entire career. He knows how to navigate the snow. He knows how to navigate the conditions. While you don't want to necessarily see him in ideal, perfect conditions inside of AT&T Stadium, yeah, I think taking him here in AT&T Stadium, even with the way that he's victimized the Cowboys inside that building, I would take my chances with all things being equal.
I'm trying to think. Do we get to the apology first or talk about the record?
You got to apologize first.
Okay.
After the game that he had.
I tweeted this to him as well, but I need to apologize. Sorry, I'm looking on the audio sheet right now. Did we ever find that old DeMarcus Lawrence?
Searched everywhere.
Couldn't find it.
Couldn't find it.
I bet Reggie knows some hidden place. But okay, so
we don't have the audio of Tank calling you out?
No, it exists.
He called you out.
Oh, for sure. So here's how it went down. Is before the season started, maybe it was during training camp, we had DeMarcus Lawrence on. And I told him that I didn't call him Tank anymore because I thought he had to earn the nickname back. Is
there like a less Tank name that you had for him?
I just called him DeMarcus.
Okay.
So I wasn't like trying to be
pickup truck or anything.
No.
Like what's less than a Tank?
Yeah,
it's like
exactly. So I wasn't trying to be like overtly disrespectful, but I also wanted to just let him know, hey, I'm not going to talk trash about you. And then you come on and we're like, hey, you're the best. I wanted to be like, hey, check it out.
I'm going to talk trash about you and then let you know.
Yeah, sure. And that's great. I want him to know exactly what I think. So you can be like, well, you know what? I think your broadcast is trash. And I'd be like, fair enough. I got a whole bunch of people I can connect you with. And so like I told him that and he kind of chuckled. I was like, you know how us media people are. And he goes, oh, I know. And so I was like, but I'm fine with being wrong, and I love the Dallas Cowboys and all this and that. And I was like, and if you prove me wrong, I feel free to come back on. And he's like, and at that point you can say, and he goes, what's my name? And so like, I would love at some point if we could get DeMarcus Lawrence back on the show.
Maybe you should serenade him. It's like a good apology song.
Oh, I could write a little poem or something.
Bro, I was thinking of like Jealous Guy by John. Like that's the one that kind of, it's not exactly applicable.
Okay.
If there's like a good apology song though that you can like.
So if I started it with something like, I saw the game and you had another big sack. Take all the trash I talked and I take it back. And like we just kind of just go from there and just kind of
Bill
build.
Shakespeare over here or something.
Like just keep in mind, that just popped in my head. So
wow,
you're like,
is that an iambic pentameter too?
That's right. That's how we like to do it. And just like a real poem, it rhymes. And so here's the thing is he's Tank Lawrence. Like I feel like I have no option given the evidence in front of us because, and I thought this was hilarious, is he's trying to dispute next gen stats. They said on that 40-yard pick six, he hit a top speed of 17.51 miles per hour. And in his quote tweet, he's like, is there any way we can check that? I really felt like I hit at least 18 miles an hour. That just shows you how much fun they were having. But to go along with that, Tank set the record for, now this is the most different players ever in a season for the Cowboys to score a touchdown. Now, we have been talking about this for like a month. Once they got to 15, I found the stat. The Cowboys had 16 players score touchdowns in 1968, 1980, 1983, 1987, and 2001. In 1968, 80, and 83, they won 12 games. Don't worry about the other 2 seasons. So we talked about who would be number 16, and I think it was Dorrance Armstrong, I want to say. Or maybe it's Carlos Watkins. Well, it was somebody that like not a lot of people predicted. And so then we were like, well, who's going to be the record breaker? So the record breaker ended up being DeMarcus Lawrence. And if we want to go ahead and fire that off now, I know we played it a little bit earlier in the show, but here is DeMarcus Lawrence with the pick 6 for the touchdown and the record breaker.
3rd and 7. Diggs matched up with McLaurin. Heineke looking that way. And he throws it out. It's intercepted by DeMarcus Lawrence. Left sideline to the 20. He's still going to the 10. Rumble, you tank. Rumble, you big tank.
And the good times would keep on running because we played you the Golston touchdown, but also if you want to do cut number 9 right here, they added yet another new player to the list.
3rd and 1. And they're going to keep it, and he's going to throw it on the right side to Steele! And Steele's got a touchdown!
All right, so you had 17 with DeMarcus Lawrence, and now Steele and Golston have got you up to 18 and 19. And you think, well, that's where the story ends. We broke the team record, and that's fantastic. Except that's where the story begins, Ari. Because in doing further research, the all-time record is 21 different players for an NFL team. So here are the players for the Cowboys who have scored a touchdown this season. Zeke, Tony Pollard, Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Dalton Schultz, Cedric Wilson, Michael Gallup, Blake Jarwin, Malik Turner, Sean McEwen, Terrence Steele, Anthony Brown, Trevon Diggs, Carlos Watkins, Dorrance Armstrong, DeMarcus Lawrence, Nahshon Wright, and Chauncey Golston. Those are all 19. How can we now get to 21? Now, when we asked Jerry this question a couple weeks ago, he said he would love to see one of the big boys, one of the offensive line, get in. He originally said Connor McGovern, and you just heard Steven was like, well, you know Jerry loves him some offensive linemen. So you got the offensive lineman. My original vote was going to be for Noah Brown a few weeks ago, and that's before he went on IR. Now, remember, for Cooper Rush, when he passes for a touchdown, that does not count. It only counts if you get into the end zone yourself. So some other viable candidates, mostly on defense now, is Micah Parsons, Randy Gregory, Jordan Lewis. Steven, by the way, told us it's early to find out, but they are hopeful that he's on the right path to be back, and they feel very confident that Tyron will be back against Arizona. And then Jaron Kearse. Now, Corey Clement is another person that came up, and obviously he was hugely important as he was the one-man pass rush that set up the punt rush that set up the Golston touchdown.
Jeremy Sprinkle.
Ooh, okay.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
As he's a pass catcher technically.
Are you allowed to give the answer, then say your answer was a good one?
No.
Okay.
I'm glad. I was hoping you were going to catch me in
good
that.
Answer.
I was hoping you were going to catch me in that, but here we are. Because it was one of those things I said it and I was like, oh, that sounds awfully sure of myself.
I think Jeremy Sprinkle makes sense. Micah Parsons makes a lot of sense. And when we asked Steven that a couple weeks ago, he said, has number 11 got one? We said not yet.
It's kind of surprising, isn't it?
That's my vote.
How much does Micah Parsons sucks that he doesn't have a touchdown
he
this year?
He is now, along with TJ Watt, the co-favorite for Defensive Player of the Year.
TJ Watt plays like 20% of the snaps for his team. There's just, I don't believe it. No.
That's a good point. Trevon Diggs, third.
Yeah.
Despite what Mike said.
Also, what about the guy that we thought would be the offensive lineman to catch a touchdown in the first place?
Connor McGovern?
Connor McGovern!
Makes sense.
They threw it to Terrence Steele to throw our whole world out of whack.
You think
nobody
Connor
saw
McGovern
Terrence
was sad
Steele
about that, or he was just happy they scored
He had
a
to be
touchdown?
devastatingly sad.
Oh,
all year he's been saving up. He's thinking he's the one that's going to get it. He got disappointed when he got moved to left guard because he knew at that point that he wasn't special anymore. Then he gets moved back to this role. Oh, he had to be devastated.
All right, so Jeremy Sprinkle, Micah Parsons, Connor McGovern. Alec, do you have somebody that you would like to add to the mix?
Also think of the Brad Sham possibilities on a Sprinkle touchdown, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
There's just so much you can do with that.
That's a good point.
Ooh, I'm almost thinking if he comes off of the COVID list and some people may be inactive the final week, you could see a Simi Fehoko.
Okay, that makes sense. I really thought yesterday there was a chance we were going to get a Cooper Rush touchdown when he went into the game. But remember, he has to rush it in, and I was like, oh, let's get that.
I mean, it is his last name.
Yeah, it makes sense. His name's not Cooper Pass. So,
Cooper Rush.
Yeah, you would think that this could work out. So,
if I had to put money on it, I'd say it's a defensive player or Cooper Rush.
Okay, which are you going?
The easy answer is Micah, but you know what? Let's make it crazy. Give me Kelvin Joseph.
Oh,
wow!
Let's make it crazy.
That's saw like enough take your pants off and go crazy.
He saw enough in that game.
My favorite thing to do.
Oh, ladies, I think. So, I'm just kidding. So he saw enough in that one game. He's like, Kelvin Joseph it is. Now poor Jordan Lewis. I would love to see it be Jaron Kearse just because, and that's why I wanted to ask Steven about it. Like when they made that move, I didn't give two craps
I killed the move.
About the move.
I was a freezing cold take on that move.
Oh, yeah?
Like that move in particular, I was like, this is the move they made?
I thought it was like a give up move.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, this is what we did.
All these guys we've talked about over the years that they were trying to go after, Jamal Adams and Earl Thomas. Great moves that they did end up making. Fantastic moves that I was clamoring for them to make. That would have been horrible moves had they made them. Yeah. Yeah, that was a great. And look, they had missed a lot last year in free agency. Will McClay and Stephen Jones have hit a lot over the years in bargain basement guys. They play the numbers game and they hit.
Just like we talk about JD and his bargain basement pitchers that have really paid off, is we do well in the mid to lower tier. From the 817, what about Cooper Rush with that Philly special week 17? Oh, where he catches the touchdown pass?
Ooh.
That would be awesome. From another 817, can I get a Jaquan Hardy touchdown? And from 817's bringing it in this moment. LVE is my pick, man. Slowly but surely, he has looked perfectly serviceable. I know that doesn't feel like high esteem, but for most of the beginning of the year, I feel like we're like, what are we doing? Right. And now you're like, it looks okay.
Yeah, there were times this year where it's like, he can't be playing. Like he needs to get off the field. So you're right. He's become a much more serviceable player.
Now we have amazing news for you, Ari, and for everybody. We're going to call him Tank now, but the man himself, we have found the audio of Tank Lawrence when he was on with K&C before the season got going.
If you really need some motivation, I'm really going to motivate you right now because I'm one of these terrible media people. I have absolutely said on air before, I'm going to call you DeMarcus until you earn the Tank moniker back, and I would like you to let that motivate you because I'm a bad person.
Oh, man. Well, I'll give you something very interesting to look at this whole season. How about that?
Hell yeah. I'll tell you this right now. I grew up in the Metroplex, and I love the Cowboys, and there's nothing I would like more than for you to come on after y'all win the Super Bowl and be like, what do you think now, idiot? And
what's my name?
I will tell you at that point. I will absolutely at that point.
See, he went Heisenberg on you, dude. He went full Heisenberg.
What's my name? And I have to read a book of poetry. Although I guess, now that you mention it, we did bring up poetry in this segment. And they didn't even have to win the Super Bowl. And he still gets his nickname. I would love see if we can get DeMarcus Lawrence on the show this week to talk about not just that, but about this defense in general, because obviously they have been on point.
And I wanted to get your thoughts on this one, Will.
Mm-hmm.
One, Trevon Diggs.
Okay.
And I want to get your thought about his emergence and potentially, are we on the verge of a guy that we're seeing could be a shutdown corner? Or is this something that is still in the distant future for him as you watch him play?
No, I do not believe it's in the distant future. So doing what we do for a living, it's a lot of, we do predictions here and there and
crystal ball kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think any of us that take that stuff seriously will always qualify it with, well, hey, I reserve the right to change that opinion once new information comes to light. And there's no reason coming into the season that we believe that the defense will be able to do what they are doing right now. As you are going through the preseason and you have a little bit more information there, I thought this defense, all it needs to be is a top 15 defense.
That's what we all, yeah.
To be a Super Bowl caliber team.
Right.
And I thought that they were going to be that just from what we saw from Micah Parsons in preseason, being like, wait a minute, he is definite impact. And when you look at Trevon Diggs as well as Parsons together, that it could be a paradigm shift for this defense moving forward. Now, they have exceeded my expectations as everybody else's because of how well not only both of them have played, but the guys that we were mentioning a few minutes ago, those pickups, Curse, Watkins, KZ, Hooker, et cetera. So with what we're seeing now with Trevon Diggs in his second year and considering the pedigree of being the wide receiver that Nick Saban, requested him move to cornerback, which ultimately was his decision. He decides to do that with how he plays the football. And I know that earlier in the year there was this comp to Deion Sanders. It works, okay? Is he as good as Deion? No. He does certain things like Deion, and that's what we're comparing here, right? Where it's maybe a better one is Marcus Peters, right? Because he kind of allows guys sometimes or gives the quarterback a feeling that somebody's open and then he's going to close.
He'll bait you.
Yeah, he baits you.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that we're going to have to wait on that very much because you're right in what you said earlier as far as they're still deciding to throw to him, as evidenced by play number 1 last night. I think that eventually comes to a close.
Kind of feel like I really like what you're saying there. I feel like he's pretty close to doing this, even though that the yards say, he's one of the most attacked corners in the league. He gives up plays, but I kind of feel like, though, that's part of what comes with the territory now of being in the National Football League and playing corner. I think you face so much, with these quarterbacks, and they want to test you, and you're kind of wondering, well, why do you keep testing the guy? But maybe he gives up a play here and there, or maybe he has a little bit of lapse. But that lapse we saw in New England, you don't see that anymore. You don't see him giving up this, guys running free or him having a bust or something like that. I think that was one of those games where that was kind of a very, an eye-opener here. He makes a huge play in that game with the pick six to kind of give the Cowboys, and then all of a sudden you turn around and then you have, the coaches will say, well, both guys were bad in that play, but in actuality, Diggs was probably a lot worse than the others. And I kind of feel like, though, the more I watch him play, the more I do see a shutdown guy. I evaluate these corners with their ability. We've seen with his ability to finish and get the interceptions and stuff like that, which has been incredible. We might not ever see anything like this again, if he continues on this path. But you also see him play where he carries routes. He carries guys across the field. That's the thing. If you find me a cornerback that can carry routes inside and can also defend the ball, that's just the hardest thing to have to play corner. I mean, the vertical stuff, the slants and all that, that's difficult. That's just driving up. But when you have to physically run with a receiver and running through trash and all that, and you're still able to make plays and keep up, that's the kind of stuff. That's that's the special stuff that you see in a cornerback, and especially a cornerback like Diggs. I mean, he's just got such a feel. And you mentioned it's probably because he was playing, as a receiver in his career, and he understands that mindset. He understands when you run in a route, he says, okay, you're not going to do this to me because I know what route you're about to run. And I'm going to be able to play this route because I know the down and distance. I know the situation. I'm going to go play this route. Maybe he sees it by the steps, body alignment, things like that. I think the fact that he was a former wide receiver for a big time college program is benefiting him right now because it's helping him with his development. I think we're seeing a guy he's got that. He mentioned it. I don't think he's cocky about saying that he can get as many interceptions as he wants. I believe that because I think he has a great understanding of how to play routes and how to position himself.
No question about it. And what do we typically see with especially corners in their rookie years, for those that are drafted, high or, within the first couple of rounds, that at times you see the flashes of why they were drafted where they are. But there are some growing pains. And we saw it last year. But I think that, and it's not just with Trevon Diggs, it's a lot with Micah Parsons too. I think that we have got to give not just Dan Quinn, but the entirety of this coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball a real big tip of the cap, because these guys know exactly what they're supposed to be doing and where they need to be. Remember last year when guys were running free all over the second level of defense, and we're like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah. They don't know what's happening. They don't know where to be. Micah Parsons in I believe it was the second series had another one of those plays like he did the week before, in which he came off of that, that pick, and he goes over and he defends the pass. He recognized the pick, goes back, saves the touchdown. Mm-hmm. There was a screen play early on last night that he diagnosed it immediately. And he, instead of coming after Taylor Heineke, he was holding on to that block right there, came off at the perfect time to disrupt it. You see the same thing with Trevon Diggs and the stuff that you're talking about right now. It is the defensive backs coach, the linebackers coach, the line coaches that have got these guys understanding what they need to do and situationally where to be and how to do it. And I think that to add that to the talent that they have has been the reason why we have seen such a paradigm shift with this defense from last year to this year.
No, to me, this, guys will tell you if they know what they're doing, they'll play fast. It's defenses that play with hesitation that don't know what they're doing. And, this coaching staff has clearly come in here and made a difference as far as the preparation. You used to hear what's going on. Mike would say, oh, we're meeting virtually now. And when I heard the word virtually last year, that was the biggest terror because there's some guys that learn by being on the field. And I thought their teaching plan last year, the pandemic plan, as far as how they taught, I thought was awful. Their players played like they weren't taught, and the players didn't understand. And I think that's, sometimes this crew seems to have a better understanding. Maybe all the things that happened to them last year with Zoom meetings, and I think they're a WebEx team or whatever, but all those things that they learned last year, they were able to kind of put and say, okay, hey, we're not going to do that anymore. Because you're right. You watch guys like Diggs, you watch Parsons, you watch these guys. I mean, Kelvin Joseph going out there and, playing the way he did, that tells you a lot about these players, the commitment they have to learning, but it also shows you though about what these coaches have done teaching. And I think that, like I say, you get a guy like with Diggs who is already super talented, but then you throw in the fact that he's already a highly football intelligent guy, and then he has a real understanding of how to play the position. Like I was mentioning, the feel that he's able to play and route. It's like, he doesn't have to get handsy and fight and do all that stuff because he knows how to run and he knows how to stay in position and he knows how to track the football. Those are things that you can't always teach, But man, they're doing a great job, and I think he is. I think he's closer to being. I know people attack him, but man, I see his game getting better every single week.
You know, I want to underscore something you said in there, and you guys will bring it up from time to time. You and Jeff both do, and it's so true. And it was part of what the issue was last year when you said, when you know what you're doing or what you need to do, you play faster. You do.
Yeah.
Because you're not thinking.
Not thinking.
You're reacting.
Yeah.
And when you think out there, there's hesitation, and then that's not when you're allowing, the best of your athletic ability to come in. And I think that's what we're seeing from this defense right now. And that is, the biggest part of it. I said a few minutes ago, I think it's a better defense than Green Bay's. I think it's a better defense than Tampa Bay's. The talent that the Rams possess is obvious. And I think if they're playing at their top level, it's hard to argue with them. But when you look at what these guys have been able to do at all three levels of this defense, then I think that you certainly cannot argue that they are right up there with the Rams right now. And a lot of that is because Trevon Diggs has done something this year that hasn't been done in 40 years.
Yeah.
40 years.
40 years. That is, super impressive. And ball skills, athletic ability, awareness. And these are things the Cowboys. I remember that draft when I remember people telling me over there before they took CeeDee Lamb, it was like, listen, if we get wiped out, we think enough of Diggs to make him our pick at 17. We think enough of him, and they had a really nice understanding of who the player was and what he potentially can be. I mean, I don't think anybody thought he was going to get 11, 12, 13 interceptions in a year. But they sure had an understanding of how this guy, what his makeup was, and his ability to make plays. And I think that's a credit to the player, but I also think it's a credit to the staff as well.